Welcome again to Swami Reacts. Today we'll be analyzing the accidental twins. This is an interesting documentary movie, something in between both two. Maybe you have heard about it. That, again, not want to spoil it, just a few ideas that everyone will know before watching the movie. These two set of twins that were mixed when they were babies. So my point, the idea is that they will become mixed. So they will be born as twins. They supposedly born on the same day, but one was very different from the other. So it's a real story. Even we were thinking, even if someone will come up with this script as a not real, as fiction, that will be genius-like. What to speak if it's a real story as it is. So these two sets of identical twins, again, which were switched at birth. It's a real life plot, more shocking probably than fiction. So they came to know about this when they were 25. Somehow casually, a friend of one who knew one of those. She met the actual twin of that one who is identical, thinking that it was him. And eventually, as you can imagine, the whole plot unfolded. And they realized, okay, not only there is an actual twin, identical twin to me, who is my actual brother, but also I've been living with who I thought was my twin brother, not identical, but actually he's not my brother. And he has his own identical twin living somewhere else in the country. This is settled in Colombia. So just stay with that idea for a moment and try to imagine the complexity of this. What to speak of karmic dynamics here, right? So it's a very interesting documentary because it's a real story, and it plays out how they react to that. Of course, different reactions, different people at the same time. The principle sometimes called nature versus nurture. How different people. I mean, if you have identical twins, they are generally known by coming with a very similar disposition, right? So even though they grew up separate from one another in two different cities of the country, in two different setups, one in the city studying, having an education, and the other two more in the countryside without an education. At the same time, the two identical twins, when they came to know one another, they realized how similar they were in nature and disposition, and how different they were to their so-called brothers, so to say. So this whole plot triggers in the documentary, as you can imagine, an emotional whiplash, basically. Some of the twins thinking, oh my gosh, now I'm so fearful that I will stop belonging to this family. I will be rejected as an actual brother or as an actual son of my mother, because try to imagine, it's not just something between brothers, but it's the parents. Some of those parents died. So for some of them were like, I never met my actual mother. Some of them were still alive. So meeting their actual child, very emotional, intense, as you can imagine, very, very intense psychological impact, not only for the characters, for whomever is witnessing that, and also a very deep existential crisis, right? Because it's a way of thinking, okay, I have not lived my actual life. Or on the other side, someone else has lived my life. Or if you want to put it even, I have stolen the life of someone and I actually lived that myself. So these different main characters of the movie, not a character, again, it's a real case, they go through different dynamics like this. Four individuals navigating in their own way, of course, with their tools they have, navigating existential crisis, identity confusion, loss, and gain also at the same time. Again, it's not tragedy. It's not only tragedy. It's not only bewilderment, sadness, and confusion and fear, but there is, of course, lots of gifts coming, and the movie ends with a happy end, of course. But it raises many questions, not only, of course, about accountability in healthcare, because they will explain how apparently the twins were switched when they were as babies, but also what's the meaning of family. That was a very important point for me, because, of course, as you can imagine, when these twins realized who were their actual brothers, immediately they also felt, well, but he is not my blood brother, but he's my brother. And he will always be my brother. And everyone was feeling the same for their own non-blood brother. I'm reminded in our own tradition, when we speak about the relationship between, for example, Krishna, God himself, the sweet absolute in his lila. And sometimes we find this argument, okay, Krishna's parents are Devaki and Vasudeva, not Nanda and Yashoda. Nanda and Yashoda are foster parents. The actual blood parents are Vasudeva and Devaki. Of course, in our Gaudiya tradition, we'll have our own scriptural way of explaining that that's not even that's not the case, and that the Krishna Vrindavan was born from Nanda and Yashoda. But even if you want to make the case we will make is, okay, but relationship is not based on blood connection. Relationship is based on love. First, you love someone, then relationship is established. Ultimately, that's the idea. In this world, sometimes we find the opposite. You are born with some people, relationship is already established. He's your brother, he's your mother, and then you have to love them because you are supposed to love them, because he's your brother, because he's your sister, because she's your mother. But here in the Vraja Lila, many times we find that, like Balaram and Krishna. Technically speaking, Balaram is not Krishna's brother, but we always will refer to them as brothers because they feel like. So, of course, with this, we are not downplaying blood relationships and the commitment one may have by being born in a particular family, and for whatever reason one was born there, and there is something to learn there, and there is something to, not only something, a lot, to be acknowledged and be grateful to our chain of ancestors in our particular lineage that allows us to be born in that particular setting and learn the lessons we need to learn. But also at the end of the day, sometimes ultimately family, of course, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is only one family. But my point here is, at the end of the day, family is where our heart is, no? Like they say, home is where your heart lies. And how relationships ultimately are based on that, of a common interest, of a connection of hearts, not necessarily of a blood connection. So the Accidental Twins, a very interesting documentary. I remember myself watching it with two other friends some days ago. Many occasions moved to tears almost, because by witnessing the depth of what they are going through. And of course, besides this very unique situation, I don't think that has ever happened. Of course, this may have happened, but that it came to be known and people could understand what actually happened, we don't know of any other case apart from this one. But my main point with all this is not to present a situation that is absolutely unrelatable, because we have not gone through that, but we can relate to so much of this. Again, what's real family for us? What's real connection? How we navigate identity crisis? How we navigate what's the fears of not belonging, the fear of loss, the imminent loss? What happens when we had some idea of a particular relationship? That person plays that role, I'm playing that role, and whatever happens in life, that shifts in one direction or another. Who we are now, how our sense of identity is tied to our environment. And again, how, as Krishna will say in the Gita, how our acquired nature, in many cases, is so difficult to overcome, or you don't, in one sense, you don't need to force it in a different way. How much we have to come to terms with who we are and learn to accept it. This documentary, that was very nice, how the two brothers, not the actual brothers, but who they thought were brothers, they always say, throughout our life, I lived with him, but we were so different. We loved each other as brothers, but we have so many different tastes and inclinations and ways of living. And we were twins of some sorts, but we were always wondering, we are so different. And then they meet their actual twin. And they immediately connect in so many ways. And again, there is a happy end to the story. And at the end of the day, not only they meet their actual twin, but they are not losing their previous brotherly connection with their previous brother, so to say previous. So the end of the story is actually, okay, now there are 4 brothers. They're not one on one, but there is a bigger connection between the 4 of them, between each other, with their parents, with their extended family. So if we learn to go through it, and all of these were very religious people also, these 4 brothers. So if we go through all of this, and that was a very important point, many times during the movie, they were like, okay, for some reason, this is happening. God is present in this. For some reason, we have to accept that. And they navigated in a very noble, dignified way with all, of course, the ups and downs and messiness that such a complex situation may come unexpected. But the end result was, again, the sense of family grew, expanded. But for that to happen, there has to be in between some crisis. No? So I always like to think of this in terms of this wisdom pattern, as Father Richard Rohr will call it, of order, disorder, reorder. Very related to the hero's journey. There is order. There is a fixed situation, predictable, clear. Everyone has their role. You are my brother. Then comes disorder. You are not my brother. My brother is someone else. We have been switched at birth, chaos, crisis, and so on. Liminal space, fear. But if navigated with integrity, with truthfulness, with sincerity, with openness to acknowledge what's going on, what needs to take place, the end result is reorder. A new order takes place. Not the previous order, but a new, bigger, deeper, wider, more accommodating order that now gives place to a bigger family, a bigger sense of brotherhood. So again, we are all looking for brotherhood, for sisterhood, for family, for belonging. And ultimately, our tradition will teach us there's only one family. And in that family, everyone belongs. Everything belongs. But to reach to that conclusion in practice, in experience, we may need to go through a few times, more than a few, through this pattern of order, disorder, reorder, order, disorder, reorder, order, disorder, reorder, till we get to that final, so to say, order where everyone belongs. There is place for everyone. We realize, oh, everyone is my brother and sister. There's no more than one family. So these are some of my thoughts and takeaways from this movie, The Accidental Twins. So let me know your thoughts. If you have watched it, if you plan to watch it, or just which are your reflections in connection to the topics we have shared today. Please drop your thoughts in the comment section. And looking forward to meet you in our next meeting on Swami Reacts. Have a blessed week.